I actually think that if you're breathing and alive, you should have a therapist in your life. And having somebody in your life that you can have dialogue with that is not part of your everyday life, there's a ripple effect of inner work. When you're doing your own healing, you are inspiring and encouraging others. You will be a different energy in all the situations you're in, and you will ignite ideas and inspiration in others. This is Heal Your Part, and I'm Jennifer Herrera. I'm on a mission to help you heal what's in the way so you can see yourself the way your soul does. Because when you heal your part, everything shifts. Welcome back to Heal Your Part. I'm Jennifer Herrera, and this space is dedicated to the real, raw, often invisible work of healing, personally, relationally, and collectively. And today's conversation is foundational. We're talking about what inner work actually is. This term gets thrown around a lot, but few people stop to define it. I thought it was important that I do so, and also because it's an integral part of this entire podcast. So we're going to explore why it matters so deeply in shaping who we become and how we move through our life. In this episode, I'll share why inner work isn't just for hard times. It's a lifelong relationship with yourself. It's how we reclaim our stories, heal old patterns, and begin to shift what we attract, how we respond, and who we become. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Heal Your Part podcast. This podcast is dedicated to unpacking, discussing, revealing, demonstrating, showing examples of the healing experience, the healing process, all the ways that healing is going on, can go on individually, societally, and really just to bring this idea of heal your part, like do your part, heal your part, to mainstream, to normalize the experience and thoughts and projections, negative and fearful projections around healing and doing the inner work and liberating yourself from the pain, shame, and trauma that comes with every life, an average life. I am your host, Jennifer Herrera, and today I'm going to talk about what is inner work. This is something I will revert back to. I'll probably talk about it again in the future. And I really wanted to start here to provide a foundational definition and also context for one of the main ways through which we can heal and do heal that not only transforms and has the potential to completely uplevel our human existence, it also allows us to be just a higher functioning contributor to everything that we're a part of. Whether you are a parent, a leader, a sister, a husband, doesn't really matter. But when we heal, we lift our vibration, we transcend energy and anything that's associated with those things that need to be healed. We transcend all of it. That's what's available through healing. At the core of personal healing is self-discovery. It is recognizing that we have a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual components of ourselves. There's also the subconscious or the unconscious. But we are multidimensional beings, and there are things that make us who we are that a lot of the times we're not aware of. And if you haven't taken this path or done any transformational work or spent a lot of time in your own personal growth, you may not be aware of some of these parts that make up who you are. So let's get into it for a moment. As humans, starting out as even toddlers, the mind, the brain is always attempting to understand, to access its own sovereignty, its agency. Why do you think babies hear the word no so much? Because they're always trying to try something new, to make themselves more free. Many of us understand that a lot of who we are comes from like where we come from, or our cultural background, or our family of origin, or we can see ourselves in one or both of our parents. We also often know that if there's siblings, that we all have different interpretations of what was going on in our home. So taking a couple steps back, what I wanted to share or bring forward into this conversation that to me is a foundational part of healing, of transformation, of being able to expand beyond how you experience yourself today, is recognizing that part of how you become who you are is how you are relating from the very beginning to everything going on around you. What that means is that every situation, every interaction, every moment of your life almost, your mind is being formed by observing and interacting and attempting to understand what happened, what's happening, and what just happened. For example, when things happen when you're little, let's just say they're upsetting to you, we make a decision, we derive a conclusion about what happened, about what that means to us. What happens is that over time, we are literally essentially the accumulation of all of the decisions we've made about what things mean. And a lot of that also comes from direct and indirect messaging from parents, elders, teachers, bosses, society, siblings, you name it. That's happening too. The key piece, though, that I think is really invisible to most of us is that as you're attempting to kind of grok what happened, whatever that is, you're drawing conclusions. We like stories, we create stories. When we're little, we don't often have all the facts. We often don't have context. We often don't have just even enough life experience to have variation in our ability to kind of assess what happened. So over time, as I mentioned, we are now collecting understandings of things. Those things become our belief system. Our belief systems often influence our habits. Over time, our beliefs and our habits become our person, influencing our personality. A lot of what's going on in that is our need to want to identify, want to establish ourselves as humans in the environment in which we're in. And if we're not aware that this is happening, then we might have beliefs that we think are true and unwavering. And I'm not saying that there aren't some of those, but I would offer that a lot of the things that we're holding as unwavering or our truth or what we believe is the truth are often limiting beliefs. They are often limitations. They are often ideas and decisions we made about things that sometimes we just took from somebody else. We didn't even have an opportunity to think about, does that true for me? You know? So this conversation here today is me just sharing a little bit about what is inner work. And first you have to understand that what's going on and how you're forming into who you're being is part of the human condition. When you get later into your life and you become more aware of parts of yourself, perhaps you're pursuing a goal, perhaps you're finding patterns showing up, like you're not successful in certain ways. Maybe you're not attracting the love that you think that you want and you've been trying to have come into your life. Maybe you're aware that you have a hot temper, or maybe you see things about yourself. Well, all of those things are reactions and reflections of experiences that you've had, and often ideas and beliefs that you've assigned to yourself in your natural instinct to try to understand, to try to draw conclusions so that you can kind of okay, and move on to the next thing. So if you're not in the habit of being aware that that's happening and questioning those ideas and those beliefs, or looking at those parts of yourself with curiosity and humility and kindness and compassion, then you will hit a lot of the same stuff over and over and over and over again. Because the only way that we can really shift that is if we're willing to see the pattern and if we're willing to ask ourselves what can feel like some tough questions. It does take some level of courage to face ourselves, But the reason why I believe that it takes courage is because it's not something that has been a part of a normal societal education upbringing. No one really talks about this very real and legitimate part of being a human, of how humans form, of how personalities form. That limitation limits us from having the experience of working and being aware of that dimension. And as a result of that, it can feel foreign. It can feel, it can be something that we don't have any experience with. And oftentimes when we're dealing with things that we've never experienced, especially as adults, because now we've got these egos that we've been building over time, that you need an ego to function in the world. But if you're not aware of how that ego is being formed and how it might be getting in your way, then you have this ego that's now blocking you because it's trying to keep you safe and protect you. That may show up as blocking your ability to asking yourself a question that may feel challenging. Asking yourself, why does that keep happening? I'm the common denominator in this situation. So, to give you a personal example, I had in the past challenges with relationship, with finding my partner. And one of the things that I started to see was that even though some of the men that I was drawing into my life and inviting into my life, they were different men, different people, and there was different things with each of them. There was a through line of certain things that I was seeing. Of course, initially, and I think a lot of us are built this way, or I should say, a lot of us are conditioned this way. It was easy for me to see that they were the problem. What was the problem with them? And maybe I do have a problem with some of those things with them, and that's okay to have preferences. But what I'm talking about is that when you see a pattern in anything in your life and you recognize that you are the common denominator, the only point of leverage that you have is working with yourself, is looking at those deeper dimensions of yourself. One other thing I want to point out is that we are like magnets. So if we're not aware of this dynamic that I'm talking about, of how our personality is formed, of the pain, shame, and trauma that we experience growing up, if we're not aware of how that is impacting our life, and just be conscious and compassionate that that is part of the human condition, then we can be going throughout our entire life just basically living in response to whatever is going on and not see the bigger picture, not see the greater opportunity of growth, of healing. And in the example I shared about my experience in romantic relationship, I was attracting a certain thing, a certain personality, a certain challenge that I was experiencing. I was attracting things in that. And when I looked at myself as the common denominator, then I was able to see that I was drawing that into my life. I was attracting that. And a powerful way to think about that is that it's coming forward because some part of me is wanting to heal and transcend that, is wanting to look at that, be with that, and clean it up so that I can move beyond it and start to create a different reality for myself. That is a way that you can think about this part of the human experience, is that we're all here. We come here to learn. We all have situations that happen in our lives. We all draw conclusions. We all have pain and trauma and feelings about things that have happened in our life. They are often stored in us because we did not grow up in a world that was properly and in a timely manner addressing those things. Then that impacts who we are and how we show up and how we think and how we behave and what we attract into our orbit and our periphery. And they impact the filters, the glasses through which we see, the lenses through which we see the world. And then we can kind of circulate in that. We can be like a magnet to that. So the opportunity is to first just embrace this idea instead of making yourself wrong or judging part of it, which is so natural to do because that's also part of the conditioning that we've had, is to like judge being sad, judge being angry, judge being hurt, or judge needing to heal. Like it's a very normal, regular thing of being human, but yet we haven't been living in a world that's accepted and supported the truth that it is just part of the human experience. Like brushing your teeth. We need to heal. We need to do our own inner cleanup, our inner inventory, and take care of that part of us, because if we do, we can move through it. We can create new realities for ourselves. One of the most powerful benefits of doing our inner work is it allows us to have a place, have like a repository for us to see and look at these challenges so that we can note the patterns, so that we can pinpoint really what might be behind that, so that we can maybe in some cases go back in time to create a new understanding of the conclusion that we draw. There's many different ways that it can be approached, but one of the benefits of doing inner work, of believing in the power of inner work and of practicing inner work, is that you now have a part of your relationship with yourself, this understanding of, oh, there's some healing I need to do there. There's some inner work I need to do there. Just like, you put gas in your car, or when some part of your car starts to not function properly, you know that there's something there to address. Well, that's the same thing when you have challenges that seem to recur, or when you feel like you've kind of responded to something that seemed a bit like what drew your attention. It caused some concern. Those are all indications of opportunities for some healing and inner work. So, what does inner work look like? Well, it can be done in so many different ways. And I'm a full proponent of therapy, of talk therapy, of behavioral therapy. I actually think that if you're breathing and alive, you should have a therapist in your life. And having somebody in your life that you can have dialogue with, that is not part of your everyday life, where you're not going to have a vulnerability hangover or be like thinking about what you shared, is so important. It's such a powerful support system to have that. It also will allow you to be regularly maintaining this reality of being a human being and not get stuck or trapped in things that are not being addressed, and then have them start to really control your life. So full on, I'm a full supporter of therapy. Sometimes people can do this through having a coach or maybe even a mentor. Then there's also practices like journaling or meditation, mindfulness meditation, being in nature, spending time in natural settings where you can shift your nervous system from the fight flight into the rest and digest, and that parasympathetic state where we can actually have more access to our divine inner knowing, to our highest level of intelligence. When we can slow things down long enough, we will start to hear our higher self, our inner wisdom. Journaling and allowing yourself to have feelings and thoughts be expressed is one that I want to put an exclamation point or a double click on, because they can be the most powerful and insightful. It helps us. Talk therapy is very powerful because you can, when you're talking to somebody and hopefully they're asking you really good questions, a good therapist is not really there to give you advice. They might give you tips and support of things you can do to continue to support yourself throughout whatever healing journey you're on with them, or when you're not in session with them. But a really good therapist is asking you really good questions, helping you hear yourself, helping you hear the thoughts that come forward, because we tend to, those aha moments that we have and how powerful they can be. It's because that thought came through you. Something stimulated it, but it came through you. It wasn't someone sharing something with you verbally, and that exact thought is now your thought. That's rarely how it works. We don't tend to hold on to that stuff. We can be inspired by it, but the things that have the propensity to really make a difference in our lives, it's because we had an aha. And that means it spoke to something that is already inside of you, an insight, a knowledge that it was waiting to be woke to you. So talk therapy, writing, journaling, where you can have a place to hear what's going on up here, are really powerful ways of doing inner work. There's a couple different ways that I've shared that inner work can be done. There are unlimited methods that can work for individuals, and a lot of trained professionals have different skills. There's things like internal family systems, IFS. That's a really powerful way of supporting people and understanding more about where they came from and the dynamics of their origin story and how that's impacting them and how that's living inside of them. There are even tools like the Enneagram or human design or 3 principles. These are different tools out there that can be really powerful in helping us become more revealed to ourselves. And I also really encourage and support getting support and recognizing that it's like, if you are not an auto mechanic, you're not going to be taking your engine apart. So having somebody that is trained in that specialty is really powerful. To me, it's a form of saying, I care about myself, and therefore I'm going to act as if and take care in my decisions. And that might mean having support, having the expertise of somebody that can help me on this part of my path. So, what are some of the benefits of inner work? I think I've sprinkled a few throughout, but let me just get to some specifics. When you are on a path of inner work, or you are somebody who is practicing your own healing and inner work, it's a form of personal and professional development. It is emboldening your sense of self awareness, your sense of emotional intelligence. It's helping you build your own self esteem and awareness of your worthiness and your vitality. It is healthy and it is supporting your well-being. People that are often struggling and or have dis-ease, that is often the accumulation of unprocessed events in our life that over time are holding us down. They're living inside this vessel that we get to come in, and they are literally making us sick. So when you are taking the time to recognize as part of the human dynamic and doing your part by healing your part and taking care of you in that way, you're basically taking care of your well-being in every sense of the word. So that's one benefit that to me is the most powerful and potent and has the most long standing yielding results. You will have more vibrant, more beautiful relationships to the degree that you heal and do your own personal growth work. You will actually attract healthier people into your life because there is a vibration that we're all moving at, and we do attract like, but it's also in just the lenses you look through and the things that you talk about, and your dialogue will shift because you'll become more intelligent about things, not just subjects outside of yourself, but when you become more intelligent about yourself, you elevate yourself. And it's not saying that you're better than, it just means that you're elevating your vibration, you're elevating your awareness of yourself, and this does impact what you think and what you talk about and who you're talking with and who you're attracting towards you. And that is often found in more beautiful, powerful, healthy relationships. We'll talk more about relationships in this podcast for sure. There's a ripple effect of inner work. When you're doing your own healing, you are inspiring and encouraging others. You will be a different energy in all the situations you're in, and you will ignite ideas and inspiration in others. You will touch on that part that is inside of them that hasn't yet awakened. And finally, and one that is near and dear to my heart and really a big part of inspiring this dialogue and podcast, is that you are adding to the collective. When you heal, you are raising the vibration. You are adding another level of health and vitality into our shared ecosystem. And I had a teacher that would say, when anyone heals one issue, all of humanity is uplifted. We are living in a world of people, and every person is walking around with all of their stuff. And I think we've been around people that are heavy or seem downtrodden or seem overtaken by whatever's going on in their life. We've been around people that we know are not well, or are often, how I look at them, is they are in pain. And many times they don't even realize that's what's going on. But that impacts all of us, especially those closest to them. Heal your part is really the heart song of do your part. When you are doing your own inner work, you are taking care of yourself. You're taking care of the people in your close family, friends, community, but you are also doing your part as a human. You are adding to the greater humanity. You are removing one more block or rock from your path, which is lightening you up and allowing you to be even more beautiful, more vibrant, and more of service. A couple self-reflection questions to consider to support you in thinking a little bit about and going a little bit deeper with this topic. What does healing mean to you? What does healing mean to you? How does healing show up or not show up in your life currently? How does healing show up or not show up in your life currently? What deeper healing do you believe would support you in creating the life you desire? Let me say that again. What deeper healing do you believe would support you in creating the life you desire? Those are 3 self-reflection questions to consider as you try this dialogue on, as you try this topic on for yourself and see how it relates to you in your life. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of personal healing and inner work and all the parts that create who we are. I appreciate you being here. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Until then, be gentle with yourself and trust the wisdom of your inner voice. Thank you for joining me in this conversation about inner work, what it is, why it matters, and how it can change everything. We covered a lot today in this shorty episode: the invisible ways our beliefs are formed, the patterns we repeat without realizing, and the invitation to pause, reflect, and reclaim our agency. Because once you start to see it, you can start to shift it. If this episode sparks something for you, I hope you'll share it with somebody who might need to hear it too. I'm counting on you to spread the word about this dialogue and to help more people become aware of the freedom that's available for them. You will find a downloadable PDF, another tip sheet, the integration practice, as I'm calling it, with reflection prompts and practices to help you go deeper into this work at your own pace. And please take a moment to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you feel called, leaving a review helps more people discover this work. I would be indebted to you. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Trust your inner voice. Your healing matters, and your part in our collective healing is invaluable.